plans for controversial boundary changes to wards in Birmingham have been thrown out and a new map drawn up after 2,000 complaints were received. The Local Government Boundary Commission published revised proposals which, amongst other things, keeps Moseley Village in Moseley. Edgbaston Cricket Ground will, after all, stay in Edgbaston, and Acock's Green will remain in, Acock's Green. Hall Green was also affected by the proposals.
Well, I'm standing at Hall Green Station. Well, at least I think I'm standing at Hall Green Station. Want to catch a train from Hall Green Station? Been here since 1908. Unfortunately, if the bureaucrats have their way, it's going to be Tyseley Mark II. So you thought you were sending your children to Hall Green School? Well, you got that wrong.
Yeah.
It's going to be Tyseley now.
There we go. That's a comment from the proposals, which have now been knocked back. We're going to speak to Professor Colin Mellors, who's chair of the Local Government Boundary Commission for England. Colin, good morning.
Good morning, Adrian.
So you've backtracked then in the face of public opinion.
Well, it's interesting the words you've used about how proposals being thrown out, knocked back and driven back. The phrase I've used is actually we've listened, and that's precisely what the people, I think, wanted to do. We were actually delighted with the amount of responses we got, not particularly even with the quality of those responses. You say well over 2,000 of them. And it made it very clear that people feel deeply and have thought deeply and carefully about where they belong as communities and without the
Colin, sorry, your line is too poor, I'm afraid. We'll try and get back to you in a moment. The line is sadly unlistenable, as I'm sure you'll agree. Let's get a word with the Labour Party chairman in Hall Green and local activist Steve Gove-Humphries. Steve, good morning to you.
Good morning, Adrian.
Hall Green was also affected. Tell me how it would have been affected under the proposals.
Well, it would have been affected quite badly. I'm still of the view that we should have left it as it was, because if it isn't broke, don't break it. But I do think, actually, Professor Mellors did listen. So I don't actually think there was necessarily a U-turn. They genuinely wanted a consultation in the end, and they heard the voices of local people. Well, Hall Green Station wouldn't have been in Hall Green. It would have been in Tyseley under the proposal. Hall Green Church would have been elsewhere in Tyseley. The medical centre, the parade would have been elsewhere. The college would have been in Tyseley. So they have listened to what people's views are, and I do commend them for that, really. That is an excellent way of looking at it. But I'm really proud of the local people in Hall Green. 330 of them made submissions, many of them detailed, many of them excellent submissions. I've not read all of them because, of course, it was only released just after midnight, and I got up this morning to have a look at them. And on the whole, I think we could probably live with the submissions, though with the odd tweak here and there, and I'm sure that there will be people who will be putting in further submissions. One thing that I would like to commend is, frankly, the BBC and their public broadcasting of this, because they brought this right across the city. Your own programme did a couple of sections on it. The TV did that, and Catherine, your political correspondent, raised it, and it was then taken up by the local press. So you actually acted brilliantly and allowed lots of people to see the little clip that I did on YouTube, which then went right across them in various places. And I keep on getting stopped by people in Hall Green and asked about what's going on. So that's fantastic.
Steve, thank you very much for that. Always have to take a pat on the back of us. We've got Professor Colin Mellors back. Colin, you say, this was a consultation. There's no backtrack. They were merely proposals, so you've listened and that was your job. But why come up with these, frankly, bizarre proposals in the first place? Moseley Village not being in Moseley, Edgbaston, the cricket ground not being in Edgbaston. In a sense, all you've done is say we're going to be, in many cases, back exactly where we started ahead of this consultation. What was the basis of it in the first place?
Well, sorry, can you hear me first of all?
Yeah, got you.
Right. I think there are two questions there. We're not back where we are by a long way. The basis of the review we did was occasioned by a report into the running of Birmingham Council, where it was felt that a small part of the improvement, the challenges that were facing the council, would be from changing its electoral arrangements. Prior to this, indeed currently, Birmingham is represented by 120 councillors who are voted for a third every year, and there are 14 Under our new proposals, there's going to be a total of 71 wards. 40 of them are single member, 31 are two-member wards. And it's going to look very different from the kind of arrangements that we currently have.
But why? I mean, on that one, Colin, at the moment, it's very simple. There are 40 wards in Birmingham. All of them have 3 councillors. And now we're going to have some wards that have 1 councillor, some wards that have 2 councillors. Is that because the current councillors don't have enough work to do? Their caseloads aren't big enough?
No, the feeling of the report by Lord Kerslake was that there would be much better accountability and much better community leadership if there were a larger number of smaller wards. Ideally, that as many as possible would be single-member wards so that people would know who was responsible for looking at and giving leadership to their particular area. Now, some of the changes we've made have been to move away from a handful of those single-member wards and make them two-member wards, because by doing it in a purely single-member pattern, you will be dividing communities. And that's the point you were making about places like Moseley and Edgbaston, that often it's the association that people have with their communities that really matters them. And I don't know if the line was a bit bad earlier on. The point I was trying to make is we've been really impressed, as was Steve, I heard some of what he was saying, by the quality as well as the quantity of the comments that come in. People have had to think about where they belong, where their community is, where they associate with. That's an exercise they wouldn't have done if this had not taken place. So, as I say, we hope at the end of it, we will get it better. We're still in listening mode. If there are tweaks that still need to be made, we will listen. I'm not interested in the words about backing down or U-turns. That doesn't matter. What we were here is to try and get it right. What we put forward seemed to us to be a starting point. It's very rare that our draft recommendations aren't changed at some point. Birmingham's a very large city, a very important city, and a very complex city. And therefore, it was inevitable there were going to be a large number of responses, and we were really pleased to get them. We are still in listening mode. We want to get it right.
Colin, thank you very much indeed. You've made that point. You've made it loud and clear. Appreciate your time this morning. Professor Colin Mellors, the chair of the Local Government Boundary Commission for England. It's 6 minutes to 8.
Adrian Goldberg.